I'd like to quickly introduce myself, Tempo, and of course our amazing panelists today. So my name's Ash, I'm a city manager here at Tempo, and my job is to spread the word about what Tempo is doing to all of the businesses across the UK, but also teach those businesses how Tempo can help enhance their hiring process. So really simply, Tempo is on a mission to make recruiting and hiring the most exciting thing for both candidates and businesses. We're the go-to hiring platform for business and commercial roles, and we connect candidates to over 2,500 of the most exciting startups and scale-ups across the UK. I'm one of the D&I champions here at Tempo, and I have a real passion to make the world of work a better place for everyone, irrespective of their background. Now, to introduce you all to the stars of our show today, we're joined by Harris, Maddie, and Mills. Would you all kindly introduce yourselves, your company, and why you're taking part today? Harris, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Ash. And yeah, really looking forward to today's session. And yeah, thank you everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. So yeah, as Ash mentioned, I'm Harris from Hired. I help run our customer success teams here in London. For those of you who aren't familiar with Hired, similar to Tempo, we're a career marketplace helping innovative companies find top tech talent. Mainly working with engineering teams, helping them find top tech talent. At Hired, as well as running the customer success team, I'm a diversity co-chair. So really working internally with our different teams, as well as our product and engineering team on how can we be better as a business internally when it comes to diversity, but how can we be improving our product as well to help our customers and businesses achieve their diversity goals.
Fantastic. Mills?
Yeah, thank you so much again, Ash, for the introduction, and thank you guys again so much for taking the time to join us this lunchtime to kind of join this webinar. Introduction to myself, I'm Mills, and I am one of the directors at TapIn. Essentially, we are a media company that is first and foremost on a mission to actively prepare 100 million young people for the world of work. So we do things all around kind of social media, attracting and engaging young people to the workplace. We run some of the largest kind of career communities online as well, on kind of Instagram, TikTok, and across social. But we also support employers in how they begin to attract and engage with diverse talent. And we build strategies for them. And I think for us, diversity and inclusion is a really, really important aspect of a lot of our work. And we're constantly working to support ourselves and all of our clients in how they begin to attract, engage, and retain the best talent.
Amazing. And last but not least, Maddie.
Thanks, Ash, and yeah, thanks so much everyone for joining us today and for the intro, Ash. I'm Maddie. I'm a Senior Partnerships Associate at Beam. We're a tech for good startup and social enterprise, essentially crowdfunding homeless and disadvantaged people into predominantly training, housing and work. I kind of lead on the work side, so I was the first employee of our Beam Recruit arm. So over a year now, I had the privilege of connecting with progressive businesses that really genuinely want to tap into historically very overlooked talent and make a really lasting social impact. We've already supported about 300 people into work over the last year, and we're on track to help 1,000 this year. So really exciting. And prior to that, I was working for the amazing Tempo with Ash, lucky Ash. So I've been chatting to employers about recruitment and about diversity for a really long time now, and I'm very excited to be sharing some of those insights today.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for that, folks. And I know that the discussion today is going to be really broad from all the different areas that we currently focus. So it's going to be an amazing discussion today. But before we get into discussion, I kind of want to set the scene, kind of why we're here today. So I think firstly, it's important to understand, diversity. So diversity refers to a variety of different characteristics in a group of people. So it's used for gender, race, sexual orientation, disability, and age. But it's really important to remember that it also refers to things such as skill, professional background, and personality traits. Now, we all know that diverse companies perform better, but how much better? And I know everyone joining in today loves a stat, some numbers to take back to their managers. So diverse management teams generate, on average, 19% more revenue than those without. Gender diverse executive teams are 21% more profitable, and ethnically and culturally diverse executive teams are 33% more profitable. Now, having a diverse team helps with understanding your customer base. I'm sure everyone's customer base is very wide. So this means you can better understand your customer base if your team represent a diverse community that it actually serves. Diversity in the workplace not only improves company performance, employee engagement, collaboration, reduces staff turnover, improves company reputation, but it also helps attracting the newest and best talent. So as you can see, I can throw as many stats at you as possible, and can go on about why it's so important to have a diverse workforce. But many of you are here today because we hear here at Tempo that a key challenge that a lot of businesses face is filling that top of the funnel with excellent diverse talent. And today we're going to be speaking about how we can improve that and give you lots of takeaways. So we're going to be focusing on 3 key areas today. So best practice for running an inclusive attraction campaign, employer branding's impact on bringing in a diverse candidate pool, but also authentic hiring tactics that can set you and your team and your business up for long-term success. So we're going to start today with best practice for running inclusive attraction campaigns. And I think a real good place to start would be, where should you focus and target your efforts? So Mills, let's start with you.
Yeah, very good question actually there, Ash. And I think in terms of where you should really be looking to target your efforts when it comes to running these very inclusive attraction campaigns, what we tend to do is that we first begin with, data. We begin to first understand the audience that you're looking to target. If you're looking to target a BAME audience or an LGBT community or a particular subset of an audience, the first thing that we ensure that we're doing is collect the right data. Understand the audience holistically, understand their behaviors, understand, what they like, what they don't like, go into those communities and actively collect those key insights. Because we really believe that before an organization can come in and develop a diversity and inclusion strategy, the first and foremost important thing is to understand holistically that audience. And that sometimes can mean, if you're looking to target a graduate community, or you're looking to target students at university, sometimes that could really mean going on campus, going into these societies or communities within universities and sitting into workshops, providing them with value, and just going in and ask those questions, ask questions about the workplace, ask questions about, what these diverse communities are actually looking for when it comes to the workplace, and then once you have this rich subset of data, you can then use those insights, to begin building a strategy for the talent that you're looking to engage with and attract. But we really, really believe in, I guess, at the core fundamental basis of any D&I work, you have to ensure that you're collecting the data, you have those right insights that allow you to actually go and make those differences when you're attracting those candidates.
No, I think that's really important. Never to really assume, but immerse yourself within that group that you're trying to target. I think that's really, really great advice. Maddie?
Yeah, really, really great points there, Mills. Couldn't agree more, to be honest. I think when you're hiring, you also need to sit down and really look at what you genuinely need versus what you might want or fancy, or what's a nice to have. Do you really need a degree from Oxbridge or from a Russell Group uni, which in itself tends to attract more privileged people in our society? I think even things that you might add as a throwaway comment in a job description, like it'd be great if you've done some volunteering, that in itself can be a bit of a privilege. And for someone that's had a bit of a tough life and been focused on doing paid work to keep a roof over their head, that's probably not something they've had the time or energy or will to do, and that's fine. And yeah, I think just considering different avenues for attracting talent. First of all, you know, tapping into different talent pools. Obviously, Beam's talent pool is particularly unique in, you know, being people that have experienced or at risk of homelessness. But, you know, going into schools in deprived areas, going into universities where people may not have heard of you and may not think that they are the right sort of fit for your organisation. I think as well, going back to your website and job descriptions, I think things like cultural fit are also terms that are kind of thrown around without maybe enough care. And actually, if you're looking for a really, really confident folk, the people that know how to showcase themselves, actually you really might be missing out on quieter candidates that maybe have lower self-esteem, but just as much, if not more skill and potential than everyone else that you might be considering. I think in conclusion, one of my colleagues, Yaz, always says to look for potential over polish. And yeah, I think that's really key in attracting the right people.
Yeah, definitely. I think your point about culture fit is really sings true. I think I always love it when you see culture ads. What can you bring to our culture, which obviously means a lot more diverse and inclusivity coming into your business. Thank you very much, Maddie. Harris?
Yeah, I think for me, you know, what's really important before you're looking at those things, I think, you know, the things Maddie and Mills mentioned, like completely agree and are really important. But I think it's important to first look internally, you know, what are your current policies? I think, you know, for diverse talent, you know, I'm very much a firm believer that you need to first earn the right to attract and hire them. You know, if you're looking at people from underrepresented groups, if you want to hire, you know, disabled people, do you have the facilities in your workplace? If you want to hire people from an older demographic, do you have flexible working? Do you have a parents' room? Do you have a prayer room? Do you have gender neutral bathrooms? I think that's really important. Do you have the right environment? It's all well and good to go out and do these campaigns and bring them into your interview process, but it's going to be very clear to them very quickly that perhaps this isn't the right environment where I feel comfortable and I can excel. So I think it's really important to look at your internal policies. You know, if you want to broaden your talent pool, you know, do you have a remote working policy, or are you just looking at, you know, cities like London and Manchester? There's so many underrepresented people outside of these main cities that typically don't have access to those opportunities in cities like London, where perhaps, you know, you're missing out on that talent pool because you're sort of just focused on one geography. So yeah, I think for me, it's really important to take that internal lens, make sure you're doing everything you can as a company, and, you know, again, aligning it with what you need. If it is certain groups that you're looking to target, make sure that you've got the right policies in place to make them feel comfortable and help them excel in their careers at your company.
No, definitely couldn't agree with any more. And I know you've spoken a lot there about internal process. I think the next part, which I hear quite a lot about, is how do you ensure the hiring process is inclusive throughout the process? I mean, Harris, let's just stay with you on this one.
Yeah, I think, you know, Maddie touched on it, you know, job descriptions. I think that's a big thing. You know, are you using inclusive language? And everyone in tech is looking for the next rock star, next superstar. You know, that's only going to appeal to a certain demographic. And at that very top of the funnel, you're already excluding a large portion of your potential workforce. You know, through to, you know, what are you actually looking for versus, you know, what do you need? I love that quote of, you know, potential over polish. Hopefully I've paraphrased that correctly, but, you know, again, are you looking for these 10 things, or is that what you'd like this person to be doing over the next 6 to 12 months? Again, we know people from underrepresented groups, you know, compared to sort of the majority, you know, the white straight male will apply if they have one of those 10 things. Other people are going to only apply if they have 10 of those 10 things. And then I think, you know, making sure you've got representation throughout the interview process. You know, if you're hiring people from diverse groups, have you got a female, a person of color, people from different sexual orientation as part of that interview process? One, not just to make the candidate feel more comfortable and inclusive, but again, for that different perspective of when you're, you know, doing that wash up. And then I just think, you know, the actual application process as well. Is it a one size fits all? You know, some of the companies we work with are starting to scrap, especially for engineering roles, a job application process altogether and just say, here's a coding challenge. We don't care if you've gone to uni, if you've never coded before. If you can do this challenge, that's what we're looking for, and that's the basis of our interview process. Not saying that's perfect, but again, it's just thinking, are there more things you can be doing to make your application process more inclusive and appeal to a wider audience?
Amazing. Thanks a lot for sharing that. A lot of great information there. Mills?
Yeah, I think those are very, very good points, actually, Harris. And I think I would just add to that actually, it's so important, again, to think about inclusive design. I think just a kind of case study, an example that we had a couple of months ago was, a client came to us and, we had to kind of look at their whole entire application process. And, we found out that at a particular stage in their application process, Black students in particular were dropping off. So we collected some data and we found out actually it was part of the process where you had to do a presentation. So you had to do a presentation to like senior management, once you create a case study. And our recommendation was actually if you remove that particular stage or that particular process in the application process, you should see more of those candidates actually trickling down. Again, it's about that potential rather than actually getting that polished candidate, just like Maddie said, actually. So I think what they found was actually after removing that particular stage in the process, they were actually getting more Black candidates through their process. And data after a year was that 95% of those candidates that actually went through that process stayed at the organization. So I think it's important to really think about, how inclusive and how well structured your application process is. And I think if you look also at young people, our space is very much Generation Z. It's very much, how do you cater to young people? And we're seeing platforms like TikTok really, really build prominence now across social. And we're seeing companies actually take applications via TikToks. So rather than going through a typical process of, CV, cover letter, video interview, because so many young people are now on TikTok, we're seeing that actually these interviews or applications for these jobs are being done on TikTok. And I think, just being able to kind of understand that process is really important, particularly for the audience that you're looking to kind of engage with and target. And I think there's a really good case study of McDonald's last year in Dubai that they were actually recruiting for a particular position. They were recruiting for some diverse talent. And I think in the space of about 2 days, they had close to, I think it was over 20,000 applications just on TikTok. So just using TikTok as a platform. So I think it's really important to understand the audience, first of all, that you're targeting and how to best kind of cater for their needs when it comes to how they actually apply and engage with your organization.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot for sharing that, Mills. Again, amazing information. Lauren, thank you so much for your question. We're going to come on to the next piece, focusing on employer branding just after the next question. So we'll be able to cover a lot of what you've asked there in the next question. Maddie?
Yeah, really great points and super interesting case study there, Mills. I definitely agree. I think the most important way to make sure that you're continually making the interview process accessible and also iterating it if it's not is through data. Also, I think, being proactive about things like accessibility, not just waiting for someone to come to you and maybe say, oh, actually, this part of the interview process might be an issue for me because of X. Actually asking that question up front and inviting people to flag whether something might not be quite right for them. There are so many things that you might not think of, by inviting somebody into an in-person interview. That person, if they're doing a paid per hour temp role, by taking time out of their day, they may not get paid for those few hours that they, trekked across London to your offices. Could you offer that person a remote interview or a remote task? Working with the kind of demographic of candidates that I work with, there are things that, I certainly as a relatively privileged person hadn't thought of. If somebody, for example, can't actually pay £1.50 for the bus to get to an interview or to get to work, what happens then? If you've got 3 interview stages and every single one requires them to pay for transport, what happens then? So I think offering upfront to, perhaps pay for transport, perhaps pay for uniform, depending what the industry is. Even, considering contributing towards childcare for a trial shift, and certainly paying for a trial shift is something that thankfully more and more businesses are doing. Ultimately, I think it's just about being proactive rather than reactive, and using data to see where potentially your more diverse candidates are dropping out, as Mills rightly said.
Amazing. Again, great points, and really interesting points around trial shifts and things like that, which I haven't thought of actually. I think a key thing a lot of people are going to be thinking about is who can we be partnering with. Have you got any examples where you've had success within your business? Mills, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, I think a very good question again. I think where we usually start is, I think, before you think about external partnerships, try and look at your team and try and speak to your team and have conversations with them about the communities that they're involved with. Most of the times, if you have, if your team has the talent that you're actually looking to hire, most of the times you can have really fruitful conversations with your team to understand what communities that they engage with. Are they engaging with particular groups on Facebook? Are they engaging with particular groups on Twitter or on Instagram or on LinkedIn? Are there very secret communities that most people would know about these communities, but because their employer hasn't actually asked them to share information, that information stays unknown. So I think before you think about communities and where to go, actually first think about your own team and have those conversations with that diversity that's within your team to understand, where these audiences actually are. But I think going forward from there, when you're looking externally, when you were thinking about partnering with other organizations, think about organizations who are providing that talent that you're looking for. So we know, for example, if you're looking for Black young professionals, there's a beautiful, amazing platform called BYP, Black Young Professionals. And then if you're looking for particular subsets of communities on social, there are tons of communities on Instagram that you can really engage with. There are also influencers. We know influencers have communities of people that could be all tech. They could be all a tech female community that you're looking to engage with. There could be, a BAME community or a Black community who are just interested in, let's say, fashion. So we've had tremendous success through using kind of influencers and influencer marketing. So I think, if you're looking to find these communities, start with your team, and then also consider looking and working with things like influencers across the field.
Amazing. I think that's a good point, that sometimes the answers you're looking for are a lot closer to home than you think they are. Harris?
Yeah, I think Mills has hit the nail on the head there. Not sure what left is for me to say, but I completely agree. I think, starting internally, I think that's a big thing. Adding on from that, I think, if you've had turnover, if you had people work at your business from diverse backgrounds that are no longer working there, engage with them. Why did they leave? Was it just because of work and professional opportunities? Perhaps they didn't feel comfortable. Perhaps they didn't see representation at the executive level and thought, I can't see myself becoming a leader in this business because no one looks like me. I think, you're going to have some really honest feedback from there. Again, doing the same thing with your existing employees. You might, may not get completely honest answers. I think that's just the way it is. Some people just won't feel comfortable at their current businesses to share that. But I think also, externally, again, grassroots community organizations. I also think, we know, especially in tech, there is a lack of representation. So start to look for groups outside of just tech as well. Where are underrepresented groups outside of tech, and how can you get them involved into tech? Are there communities where there's lots of transferable skills? A lot of people want to go into tech as well. So I think looking beyond just, tech communities and organizations is important as well.
Maddie?
Yeah, again, some really great points have been made already, but yeah, I guess I would probably add that I think with the best intentions, you can be considering certain avenues for hiring, like, you know, BYP, as Mill's rightly mentioned, but I think it's always important to bear in mind what sorts of people might be accessing these networks. I think, you know, LinkedIn and similar more diverse platforms tend to often attract people that might actually be from more educated backgrounds or have certain support networks pointing them in the right direction. So I think it's really important to think about, you know, socioeconomic background in all of this, and in order to tap into people from those kinds of demographics, it might be worth thinking outside the box and even looking at, you know, job centres or social media, as Mills mentioned, where there also might be people not just from different classes, but also people with a diversity of learning. You know, job descriptions aren't necessarily accessible to everyone. You know, it's a big bit of text, you know, all these fancy words, and actually that might not necessarily draw people in ultimately. And I think, second of all, whilst thinking about ways to tap into diverse talent, you know, you obviously can't forget the importance of including that talent, as we've mentioned. And you know, if you're tapping into certain networks, you know, like Beam's talent pool or other talent pools, you've really got to think about what you're going to do to make sure that person stays, to prevent that high turnover. With Beam, we offer 6 months of job support to every single person to really stay close to that individual and make sure that they're thriving in that environment. But there is so much that you can do to talk to that person yourself and see, you know, where are we going wrong, and then be open about those mistakes where you maybe haven't quite been as inclusive in the past or in the present as you would like to be.
Fantastic. A question has just come in just before we go in and focus on branding, which is going to potentially help Lauren's question, is from Kareem. How do you even decide to target to begin with? How do you determine what diverse candidate is missing from your team? Harris, do you wanna give that one a go?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, it's a bit of, you know, how long is a piece of string? I think there's many ways you can approach, you know, a challenge like that. I think, you know, it's great, firstly, to recognize that, you know, we have a problem. There's something that we need to address. I think, you know, my personal opinion would be, you know, what's your business? What's your product? What's your service? What's the community that you're currently in? You know, if you're a product that's selling sports goods, for examples, you know, what is the community that you're trying to sell to? Do you represent your customer base? You know, where is your office, your business located? If it's located in a certain area, you know, do you have representation from there? So I think, you know, personally for me, what I would do is, you know, start with your product, your customers, and your local organization, and make sure that you're representing that. And then if you notice, you know, you need to hire more Black people, more women, more people from, you know, sexually diverse backgrounds, then you can start to create those strategies to more equally represent the sort of industry and community that you're in.
Amazing, thank you very much. So I think going in from Lauren's question at the beginning, kind of focusing there, maybe a very small startup, maybe haven't got the most diverse workforce at the moment, but really wants advice on how to make those candidates coming into the business from different backgrounds feel they belong in the business. I think it's a really, really important area on employer branding's impact on bringing in diverse candidates. So I think the first question, which I think would really help Lauren and everyone else listening in today, is how can you ensure that your careers page and job descriptions are inclusive? Mills, it'd be great to get your insight on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another kind of great question on there. I think what's really important, I think, you know, when you're looking to make these career pages and kind of job descriptions very inclusive, is to really think about, you know, the language that you're using, the tone, the messaging that you're actually conveying to the audience. You know, things like imagery are very, very important. So if you're creating any piece of content, you know, if it's images or it's videos or it's GIFs or it's memes, just ensure that that imagery or those videos are actually inclusive, because when diverse talent goes to your website, they want to be able to kind of see themselves. You know, they want to be able to go to your site and think, actually, if I'm working at this organization, it is going to be inclusive. There are people that look like me, you know, and the language that's actually being used by this organization fits in with, you know, the way I speak. It fits in with, you know, the language that I'm very much used to. So if you're targeting young people, you're looking to target Generation Z or 16 to 25-year-olds, there are specific words, the specific tones to use when you're actually speaking to this particular audience. So really thinking about that is super important. And I think, if you're at the stage where, you're doing a review of your career site, for example, and you're not really sure where to start, best place to start, again, is always to collect some data. If it means you're collecting a focus group or sending out a survey, just begin to understand. Ask people, ask 50, 100 young people what they think about your website. Ask Black students if you're targeting Black students, or Asian students, or candidates that come from sexually diverse backgrounds. Really ask them what they think about your career site and get those insights. And then once you have those really deep insights, you're then able to draw from those insights and make those all those kind of changes that are needed to, those changes that actually required for you to actually make a difference. Because once you have those insights, it means you have power. Data is also very powerful when it comes to making key decisions. And then once you have that, you're able to kind of make those changes and attract that talent.
Fantastic. I think that the imagery is really important. I think one that always sings home to me is don't use stock images. People can go on your LinkedIn and see who works in your business. So to share the ones of you and your business, which I would always recommend. Maddie.
Really, really great points there. I think beyond the language that you use in in your job descriptions in your career site, there are things that you, I think, might not even think might have an impact on your employer brand. Advertisements that are on there, but also if you require a candidate to go through a third party in order to either give feedback, which is really important, or to apply in the first place. What is that third party like? Is there anything kind of problematic associated with that brand? Does the sign up form, require you to specify your gender? Are the options just, male, female, other? If so, that's not an acceptable list of options, and that is going to have an impact on your employer brand and the way candidates perceive you. Ditto language around accessibility. I think there are just such tiny things that can be really off-putting. And I speak from experience. I'm currently tweaking a job description to hire into my role, and I had to really sit back and think, would I feel intimidated by that job description? Are there things in there that actually would be off-putting to me a year ago, or fresh out of university, let alone fresh out of school? And to be honest, the answer was yes. And yeah, having conversations internally with other more diverse members of the team really allowed me to come to terms with that.
Amazing. I think it's really good that you took a step back and had a look, especially at the own role, your own job description that you applied for. I think it's great that you shared that. Harris?
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone said. I think language is important. Don't assume. Ask the audience. Unless you belong to that community, you can't assume that what they're looking for and what they want. I think another thing that not too many companies do, but be transparent. If only 5% of your workforce is diverse, don't be afraid to share that and share your goals. What are your initiatives? What are you doing to increase that diversity? I think people from underrepresented groups, they're underrepresented for a reason. They know that, and most people from underrepresented groups want to work at a company where they can have an impact and make a difference. So saying, we want to hire our first female in the team, and we want them to help. How can we attract more females into the team, whatever it might be? A lot of people will be really interested in joining that journey, knowing that they can have a big impact. So again, if you haven't got a nice diverse team to put up on your careers page, that's okay, but sort of call it out, share what you're working on, and how people can join that journey and make an impact at your organization.
I think I would actually add on to Harry's points actually, and just say that sometimes the candidates that you're looking to actually attract and engage aren't gonna even land on your career site. They might be elsewhere. If you're looking for diverse talent, they might be on Instagram, for example. They might be on Twitter. We know that actually, from data and from collecting information, we know that particularly if you're looking to kind of hire out Asian and Black talent, they're mostly found on kind of platforms like Instagram and Twitter, because that's where the conversation is, you know. So sometimes a career site can be great, but sometimes these candidates aren't even landing your career sites. They're actually on other platforms. So understand these audiences and understand where they are, so you can actually focus your efforts on the platforms and channels that they're actually reside on.
100% and 100%. I think just to add on that, I think, you know, if you've got a diversity statement and manifesto, share that on your careers page. But like Mills said, share that on those social platforms as well. That could attract candidates to come onto your careers website. Another great thing which some of the businesses that I work with have is a cultural calendar. So even if they don't have people from all different backgrounds, they still celebrate those things internally and show them off. So Martin Luther King Day, Diwali, Ramadan, Chinese New Year, everything. Educate those within your business and share it. Share what you're doing, because that will make people from those backgrounds feel more inclusive. That when they come into work, that they can really be comfortable within that space. So that could be one that you can take away and add in straight away. And I think we've spoken about all the great things, but I mean, on the face of it, you can say, you know, these are the issues, these are the consequences, but what are the real consequences that you see and that, you know, you have to deal with if you don't get this right? Maddie, let's kick off with you on this, please.
Yeah, thanks, Ash. I think, to be honest, the consequences can be pretty severe. An obvious one is high turnover. If somebody's having a poor experience in your organisation, you know, doesn't feel included, at worst even feels, you know, ostracised, they will go elsewhere, and you've lost that high quality candidate. Those candidates will often also tell the world about their experience in your business, and it's, you know, things exist on the internet forever these days. So that can be extremely damaging to your employer brand. Obviously, as a business, you really care about your customer base as well. So, you know, you really risk losing customers or attracting the wrong type of customer if you don't think carefully about diversity and inclusion. And, you know, the statistics around how many millennials are keen to work in inclusive and diverse organisations, I think, speak volumes. You know, something like 75% or something consider this to be a really important part of their thought process when they're applying for a job. So you'll also be really missing out on high quality talent, which yeah, no one wants.
Definitely. Harris?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it takes years to build trust and a second to break it. And again, everything lives on the internet forever. I think, you know, a good example is what's happening in the Euros right now. You know, it's Pride Month in Germany. Bayern Munich wanted to update the colors of the Allianz Arena to the Pride rainbow flag, and UEFA has said, you can do it just outside of the Euros. And, you know, what's popped up is, you know, a tweet from a year or two ago where UEFA is saying, you know, football is for everyone. It's for the LGBTQI community as well. And now, you know, they're being very hypocritical, and people won't forget that. And I think the same thing will happen with your employer brand. Like, be authentic, be open, be honest. If you don't have the answers, if you don't have a policy for something, just say you don't. Engage the community. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago where, you know, it was about diversity. And Ash, you mentioned, you know, diversity means something different for everyone. One thing that we don't often think about is, you know, neurodiversity. We think about the more visible diversity more often. And a candidate asked, you know, what's your policy for neurodiversity? And they sort of just ignored the question rather than addressing it, saying, you know what, we've never thought about that. Would love to connect with you and let's have a discussion. How can we create a policy to, you know, include these candidates as well? And, you know, everyone who wasn't neurodiverse, that was a person of color, that was female, sort of heard that, they saw that, they shied away from that answer and started to question, you know, how genuine is this company when it comes to diversity, or is it just a tick box exercise?
No, definitely. I think that point in the Euros is yeah, very, very current, and definitely one that we should be speaking about. Mills?
Yeah, definitely some very, very good points there, actually. And I think I'll just come with an example, actually. I think, you know, the effects of getting this wrong can be very dire. I think about a year and a half ago now, when Kobe Bryant passed away, You know, we saw the BBC playing footage of LeBron James. You know, so could you imagine if you're a basketball fan or you're just a normal fan, this is a huge basketball player that pretty much everybody knows. And the BBC was playing footage of LeBron James thinking that was actually Kobe Bryant. So I think it's really important for teams to be diverse, because I think if they just went to somebody that watched basketball, somebody that came from that background, they could literally just say, is this right? And they could have flagged that really quickly. So it's really, really important to, I think, build diverse teams to avoid things like that, particularly if you're working in media or even in startups. It's really, really important to have that diversity. I think another interesting example was a bank at the start of this year created this kind of video that was showcasing how diverse they were. And, it was a bank, but, there were scenes in there of like people spending 2 hours doing yoga at lunchtime, which is just not practical. And it's just not a real representation of what you actually do when you're working in the bank. We all know that you start quite early, you finish quite late, you do your 10, 15-hour shifts. And what happened actually as a result and a consequence of that was, young people can be quite cruel sometimes. So that video was actually picked up by YouTubers, and they used that as content, and they absolutely ripped into that video, and it was picked up by meme pages. And that was very, very dire for that employer brand. That was really, really dire. And, they're now in the process of trying to fix that. But I think if you get that communication, the language and the tone wrong, and you're not able to kind of get that correctly, there can be sincere and very dire consequences for your employer brand.
No, definitely. I think that comes back to what Harris said about being authentic, because you can easily get found out, especially when people like to share memes and all of that stuff. So definitely being authentic there. Before we kind of move on to our last point today, Carmi's got another question. So what if the customer base you serve isn't diverse, for example, B2B businesses, but you still think it's important to have a diverse team? How then do you sort of justify it and know what you need to do more of, even if your customer base could predominantly be a certain type of person? Sorry, there we go. Maddie, be good to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess the first thing I would say is that building a diverse team within your business is not purely just to I guess benefit your customer base. It's also proven to have amazing financial outcomes for the company itself, which feels like it would be hopefully a no-brainer. And I think also just it comes down to what's sort of right and wrong. I think by including diverse range of people in your organization, you are sort of fighting things like the gender pay gap, racial inequality. You're fighting the stigma against disabled people or homelessness, certainly when it comes to Beam. And from my point of view, I think it's just like the right thing to do to include those people and lift them up, really to be where the sort of privileged white men are today. So yeah, that would be my take. Hope that helps.
Definitely. Harris, Mills, have you got anything else to add to that question?
Yeah, I guess just to add that, I think, what are the opportunities? And if you work for an e-commerce platform, let's say, and you're helping people go online, great. We know it's probably going to be a certain demographic, but where are the opportunities? Is there communities that, didn't have access to internet, that didn't have access to technology? Can you go into those communities? Can you increase your customer base? If you're working for a company where there is, a non-diverse customer, can you diversify that customer base as well? And then in turn, that can help to, sort of dictate your talent acquisition strategy for diversity as well. But yeah, I completely agree, Maddie. It doesn't just need to be to do with your customers. It's the right thing to do as well. And, who doesn't want to increase their revenue and operating profit along the way?
There we go. Mills, you got anything to add, or shall I go into our last segment? Okay, perfect. So I know we spoke about earlier the importance of being authentic and what impact that can have. So, authentic hiring tactics that are really going to set you up for long-term success. D&I isn't just a marketing gimmick. How do we ensure that our efforts, all of this work that we're putting into, all of this conversation we're having are authentic. Mills, be great to get your thoughts on this point.
Absolutely. I think to ensure that your D&I efforts aren't just a gimmick, I think it's important to really start from the top. It's really important to have those conversations at the senior level, and to get that buy-in at the senior level, because if your senior team are actually bought into the D&I strategy, or are bought into diversity and inclusion, and they understand the importance of building diverse teams and attracting diverse talent, then that trickles down through the organization. It makes it a lot easier for the D&I strategy to actually be implemented. It makes it easier for recruitment teams and marketing teams to actually be empowered to go out there and actually hire, retain, and train diverse talent. So I think these conversations have got to be from the leadership, and that buy-in has to come right from the top. And I think once that buy-in comes in, it's in a case of saying, actually, how can we begin to then train the team? How do we train leadership? How do we train the rest of the team, irrespective of their level, on the importance of diversity and inclusion, such that when talent does come in, it's not a case of we've hired 1,000 young people that come from diverse backgrounds. And what do they do once they're in your organization? You've hired, let's say, just as an example, we recently run a campaign for a client of ours where they asked us to hire 1,000 young people. We hired 1,000 young people for them in the space of a month, and 85% of those were BAME. So the next thing now is actually thinking about, how do we then ensure that these 850 diverse individuals are actually trickling into the organization, and they feel at home, they feel welcome, and they feel inclusive. So it's really important that once the buying happens at the top, how do you then train your team? How do you train those young people to understand your industry, and to understand the importance of building a diverse environment and diverse teams?
100%. I think when you do get leadership involved and you say train your teams, I think it's also important for leadership to train themselves as well. So focus on your growth as a leader, and trickle that down. But also, if you are going to set a target and say, we're going to hire more diverse people this year, put a number on it, because once you've got a target, you've got to reach it. And if you want to be really ballsy, share that number externally on your platforms. Let people know what you're working towards. If you haven't got a diverse team, let people know what you're trying to get to. So sharing that, and amazing points from the leadership piece there, Mills. Maddie?
Yeah, some great points there. I think a lot of it does come down to a top-down approach and education. I think in order to ensure that everyone is on the same page with diversity and inclusion, I think there needs to be mandatory training. And I say mandatory because if it's not, then you often find that the people that don't attend that training are actually the people that would benefit from it most. And I think if we're all honest, I'm sure every single one of us on this panel and on this call could learn a thing or two from that training, no matter how passionate we are about changing the conversation on diversity and inclusion. I think there needs to be really strong anti-discrimination policies in place, and systems for reporting discrimination. That there needs to be a zero tolerance policy. I think that needs to be something you're open about on your website and in your job description, so that even if your workforce is not diverse yet, the people that might join that organization know the sorts of systems that are in place to prevent any issues. I think as well, it is really important to focus on things like, numbers, or even a target, as Ash suggested. But I think you've got to make sure you think in depth about, of those, say, 50 people you've hired into your organization, where are they actually sitting in that organization? Are they actually just all in entry-level positions? And is the sort of top tier of the organization still predominantly white, straight male? If so, how much progression have you really made? And let's just be honest about it and open the conversation.
100%. The question's just come in here from Rosie, which I think will be good for you to answer, Mills. I know you spoke about influencers earlier, but what is the best way to identify social media contacts to represent our brand with recruitment campaigns?
Yeah, very good question. I think the first thing I would say is to work with agencies that have these contacts and understand these communities. We obviously work with thousands of influencers as well, who we've kind of vetted and we've kind of worked with over years. But I think if you were to do this on your own, it would be a case of finding influencers on social media who fit in with your brand, who understand your brand, who understand your culture. And I think that takes a lot of actually being on social media. So you actually have to be out there. You actually have to spend time on Instagram, spend time on YouTube, spend time on TikTok to actually understand these influencers or social media contacts. And once you understand and can see that there's an alignment between them and your brand, you're then able to kind of say, actually, this is the best influencer for us to work with, And I think there's also an added piece on there around brand safety. You can't just work with any influencer. There's lots of influencers that associate with different things. So just being able to select and work with those influencers can be interesting. And I would say the last point when it comes to kind of selecting these media contacts for influencers would be to understand things like engagement rates. There's tons of influencers now that buy followers. There's influencers that will have like 200k followers on Instagram, but then they're getting 25 likes. How does the maths work out? So I think that due diligence has got to be done as well when it comes to understanding the influencers you're working with. And once you do that, you can then actually be able to kind of reach out to them, work with them. Sometimes it can take a bit of time to, message them because they're getting lots of requests. But I think, if you're looking at engaging with them, that tends to be the best way. You either work through a media house or media agency, or you can actually opt to go through the few points that I've just mentioned.
I think also, which could be a good point about we spoke about on the first question was about speaking to your employees. Rosie, you could ask your employees which influencers they believe match your business as well, and share that with you as well. So to get the whole business involved, which could be another great way of getting there. Harris, back to you. How do we ensure that we have authentic hiring tactics?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think to put it simply, if you're authentic, it will be authentic. If it's not, it's not. And I think, I think like two examples. I think firstly, for me, it really depends, how much does your organization actually care about diversity? Is it just bums on seats and we need to hit certain targets because, whatever it is, or do you actually want to make the workforce more diverse? And I think that extends beyond your organization and the people that you're hiring into your business. I work with so many companies that say we want to hire a female CTO, a female head of engineering, and whilst that's great and it's important for them to do that, what is that talent pool today? Maybe there's 100, 200 female CTOs in London at the moment that have 10 years experience. If you're hiring a female CTO, that's a company that's losing that diversity. It's great that you've been able to do that, but how are you increasing the talent pool? I think if you truly care about diversity, the focus does need to be on more junior talent, because that is where the growing talent pool is. These are people that need more experience at companies with structure. I think that's going to be the biggest opportunity, and that's where you're going to see the biggest reward for your efforts as well. There's thousands more candidates in the junior talent pool compared to the senior talent pool. Not to say you shouldn't hire senior diverse candidates as well, you should. But I think, if everyone is supporting that junior workforce, come 5-10 years time, we're going to see a much more equally represented workforce across all industries, which is ultimately going to benefit everyone. And then I think secondly, it definitely does need to be a top-down approach. I think you need executive buy-in. I work with one client in particular. The head of talent has a team of 6 recruiters, and what he will do is at the end of sort of every week, he will look at all the candidates that his team has rejected, specifically focusing on people from underrepresented groups. And there was one example where one of his team, rejected a candidate at the first phone screen. It was a female candidate. He looked at that CV and said, actually, I'm going to give them a call, understand their experience a bit more, and they ended up hiring that person 2 weeks later. So I think, that's where, that training is so important. It's not just having training sessions with 50 people on a Zoom call, but, having managers who actually care about these initiatives, who are being hands-on with their team. And then it's their responsibility to train their recruitment team to say, actually, why did you reject this person? this is what you should be doing next time, and, reviewing what your team is doing, and, being a bit more hands-on when it comes to diversity with your team is really important as well.
Definitely. I mean, great points. Always good to get another person's view on the application as well. I think a great point is, which I always look at is, what are the values within your business, and try and interview off those, and kind of see if they fit into that, but also have a look and see if your values are inclusive as well. We've only got 5 minutes left, and there's one more thing that I want to ask. So if you've got one tip you can share on this, because I know we're running out of time, but it's really difficult to develop an inclusive culture, but also there's so much value that comes from it. What are the kind of things that make people stay within the business that really work within that space? I think Neil, would be great to kick off with you from here.
Yeah, I think I would say when candidates are attracted to organizations, particularly diverse candidates, some brands will sell a narrative which doesn't actually exist. They will sell 1,000,001 things that don't actually exist. But those that do it right, those that are actually focused on diversity and inclusion, those that actually have a real agenda and really are intentional about hiring diverse talent, will follow through. And you have to be intentional about diversity and inclusion. You have to genuinely be going out there to find diverse talent. You can't kind of be half-assed about it. You have to genuinely be intentional about it. But then once the talent comes in, you have to follow through with every single thing that you mentioned whilst you're in the attraction phases. So that when they do come, they're not thinking, actually, I've been missold something. I've been missold something that's very different. And it's important that the people within the organizations are also champions of diversity, and your team is also educated on the importance of diversity and inclusion, such that when they do come, they feel very warm, they feel very welcome, and they know that the team that they're working with understands the core fundamentals of having a diverse team. And I think, holistically, once an organization is able to do that and collect all the loose parts together, and diverse talent does come in, it's so important that you're able to kind of follow through, because once that happens, you'll find that talent actually feels more comfortable. They're more likely to actually thrive.
Amazing. Harris?
Yeah, completely agree with Mills. I think, not to sound like a broken record, but I think, be honest, be authentic. Again, no one has all the answers. Don't pretend that you do. Be honest with those candidates when you bring them in. If you don't have the structures, the policies, the frameworks to support them, ask them what you can do, and then follow through with it. If that's what you're advertising, you need to sort of follow through with that. I think from a culture perspective, I think for me, culture is a byproduct of your values and the way you operate as a company. So, it's making sure, if your value is work hard, play hard, does everyone want to play hard, or do some people just want to come to work, do their job? And, not everyone wants to go out to the pub after work and have a drink. So, are your values promoting diversity? Are your values, applicable to a wider audience? I think that's really important. And then I think from there, it's empowering your current employees. If you don't have ERGs already, great, step them up, empower your team to do that, and give those communities within your organization a voice, but then also give them the ability not just to have their voice heard, but where they can actually have an impact. It's all well and good for them to say, these are the things that we recommend, and then it sort of just goes in that feedback box, which is attached to the bin, but actually, great, this is how we're going to turn that feedback into action.
Amazing. And finally, Maddie?
Oh, Harris, you've stolen my point. Can't believe it. But no, I guess just to reinforce, one of Beam's values is being open and transparent, and I certainly take that forward when it comes to thinking about D&I. None of us have all of the answers. We're all learning. The things I know now are different to what I knew even 2 weeks ago. So I think just saying when you're getting it wrong, what's not good enough, when you're getting it right, is attractive. Even if you're not where you want to be, it is attractive to underrepresented groups. And I think it's just also not assuming that that the people at the top are the people that have all of the answers. Like very often it's the people from those minority groups that know why these businesses are getting it wrong and know why they wouldn't apply. So yeah, I think it's just about being transparent, educating yourself, and just being open and honest that it's a journey, and no, we're not 100% of the way there yet.
Amazing. Well, everyone, thank you very much. I think we're about to bang on finish on time, which is amazing. But thank you so much for everyone who's listening today, and to our amazing panelists. I think a few things for me is, don't rush. If everyone else is doing it, take a step back and look at the data. Like Neil said, be authentic through your process. Speak to your employees to understand what's important for them. That may correlate with your customer base, and what's really important in the job description. Not everything needs to be bullet pointed, and look at that language to make sure that your job roles are attractive to people from all different diverse groups. If you have any more questions on this topic, please connect with myself, Harris, Maddie, and Mills today. I know that everyone's really keen to share. It's a really important topic, and for us to make a big impact on this, we need to continue this conversation. It's not going to be fixed overnight. Tempo are releasing a D&I handbook next week as well, so please feel free to share that with your teams, with your businesses, with your friends. And if you have any feedback on that or want to discuss a bit more about how you're going on in your business, please get in touch with all of us today, and we would love to have this discussion. But thank you very much to everyone who's joined in today. We're a minute over. I tried to keep it under the hour, but honestly, thank you so much, and we're going to share this recording with all of you very soon. Thank you.